Promotional consideration paid for by the following.
Folks, I think I've done it. It's taken me weeks and weeks, but I finally figured out where the Mauve is. Sorry, bit of backstory. The Mauve, my old tag team partner from the Territory days. Real funny guy. Gave me my first pilly gimmick. Whereabouts unknown since losing a game of chicken to Bill Watts. And now you're caught up. I've scoured the whole damn internet tracking this guy down, even the places I'm not supposed to go. And that's all thanks to Surfshark VPN. Surfshark encrypts my private data to keep my identity safe. It blocks malware and doesn't track what I do online, which can be, helpful in other ways. With more than 3,000 servers all over the world, I'm like some kind of ghost chameleon. I can hop from one location to another, unblocking blocked websites and bypassing geo-restrictions. But if you're not using all that to track down your friend who's been missing and presumed dead for 32 years, you can still watch Netflix the way other countries do. Discover what Surfshark VPN can do for you. Download with the link in the description, then use the code WREGRET to get 83% off your order, plus 3 extra months for free. Keep pulling for me, folks. I'm so close to cracking this thing, I can feel it. I can feel the Mauve's presence surrounding me. Oh, never mind, that's just the heat from my computer catching fire. Sweet Lord Jesus, there's the fire! Well, this week we're going back to the halcyon days of WCW in 1992. Cowboy Bill Watts has just begun his run there as executive vice president. Only been there for about 6 days though, so he doesn't have too much time to really affect what's going on this show. It's Wrestlewar 92 from May 17th of that year at the Jacksonville Memorial Coliseum in Jacksonville, Florida. And for those of you who are curious, yes, it's still there and it's just around the corner from Daly's Place. Mike Fangman, Dusty Wilson, Chris Cole, and Gerald De Los Santos nominated this show on patreon.com/wrestlingwithwregret. And we got the 2 rings set up for this show because it's War Games, son. The main event is Sting's Squadron versus the Dangerous Alliance. Now, I've been told and I've read for a long time that this War Games match is the greatest of its kind in history. Now, my sample size for what War Games matches I have seen is admittedly pretty small, but I'm going into this with a very open mind to see just if it lives up to the hype, and we'll find out soon enough. Tony Schiavone and Eric Bischoff open the show. They'll be showing up between every match to give us exposition as Jim Ross and Jesse the Body Ventura call the action. Opening match with the U.S. Tag Team titles as Greg Valentine and the Tailor-Made Man Terry Taylor take on Jimmy Jam Garvin and Michael P.S. Hayes of the Fabulous Freebirds. Taylor and Valentine look like a random tag team you would fight in the story mode in the Legends of Wrestling game, just saying. Starting out with Taylor and Michael Hayes, who's doing his usual strutting. Freebirds with an early advantage. P.S. and Jimmy Jam working on Taylor's arm, but Garvin gets dumped out of the ring. That leads to the champs regaining the advantage. Jim Jam gets worked over for several minutes, gets the hot tag to Hayes. Big comeback, a DDT attempt, but Taylor hits the 5-iron. We get a 2 count. Greg now wearing Hayes down some more, gets him in the figure 4, but Garvin just stomps him illegally. Hayes blocks a turnbuckle slam and just decks him one, makes the second hot tag of the match to Mr. Jam. Jimmy Jarm Gavin with a fiery comeback. He backdrops Valentine before hitting the DDT on the Tailor-Made Man. The 3 count, and the Freebirds are the new champions. I give it 3.5 stars out of 5. I love a good old-fashioned, classic, well-executed tag team match that tells a good story, and this did that. This totally fit the bill. Everyone did their jobs very well. The crowd was into it the entire time. A very enjoyable opener. I have to say, I'm not always a fan of tag team matches that go like with the 2 hot tag route like this one did, but they definitely won me over by the end. After we hear from Eric and Tony, it's time for young pistol Tracy Smothers taking on Johnny B. Bad. Bad was originally supposed to take on Firebreaker Chip, formerly of the Patriots. That was announced on the pre-show, but we get this instead. Smothers is on his own now after Steve Armstrong left the company, but he still has the Young Pistols gimmick on him. And I tell you what, Johnny B. Bad's entrance has a lot going on. The giant robe with pyro coming out of the sleeves, he takes that off, puts on a boa, grabs his confetti gun, puts a sticker of some lips on a woman's face. I guess that's the G-rated version of actually kissing a fan, takes money from another fan, gets in the ring, then fires his confetti gun. I tell you what, the man's intro alone is its own segment. Had this this been on TV, they would have gone to commercial after the intro before the match, and I don't think anyone would have batted an eye. The only thing that comes close to an act, or as far as an opening this elaborate to me right now, is somebody that I've worked with before named Jerry Gigolo on the West Coast. His is a bit racier than what Johnny B. Bad did here in 1992, though. The crowd is pretty quiet for this match, I have to say. Between the opening tag match with the Freebirds doing all their shtick and then Johnny B. Bad's elaborate entrance, they are just worn out for match number 2. Some good back and forth early on, goes from grappling to striking. Big jumping kick by Smothers to take down Johnny B. Bad. Smothers gets him good with a top rope spinning elbow, goes up top again, twisting cross body. Bad rolls through it and almost gets him. Bad fights out of a sleeper hold and gets back on top with some more punches. A top rope sunset flip and a kick out. Smothers goes for a kick, but Bad ducks, hits the kiss that don't miss to win. And who the hell are these guys in the white tuxes in the front row? I give it 2.5 stars out of 5. I have to give them some extra credit here because you can tell Smothers and Bad are just like working their asses off and trying their best to elicit some kind of response from the crowd. Like I mentioned, I think the first 20 minutes of the show kind of wore them out. Maybe they're saving their energy for the bigger matches later on, like War Games. And also because this match was, like I mentioned, kind of thrown together. No heat, no build to it. So I can understand why the crowd is quiet for this one, but I have to give the wrestlers credit for trying their best. We're backstage with Missy Hyatt interviewing the new U.S. Tag Champs, the Freebirds, and Jimmy Jam's wife Precious, making a rare appearance as a brunette. Precious puts them over. Jimmy Jam talks about the DDT. Hayes gives a shout out to Leonard Skinner in the city they were born in, says they're coming for the NWA and WCW tag titles. Then we go back to Tony and Eric on the stage. Eric makes a weird comment coming out of this interview. He sees Precious there and he makes a reference to, quote, the political correctness of the 90s when he says behind every successful man there's an equally successful woman. Like, okay, but is that a phrase that was born out of PC language? Was that something that is that an inherently politically correct statement? I thought that was just a nice sentiment. Light heavyweight action up next as the former rookie Marcus Alexander Bagwell takes on the flamboyant Scotty Flamingo, the spoiled rich kid from Florida who's looking to take the light heavyweight division by storm. But where's JT Southern? For the last several weeks on TV, Flamingo was accompanied to the ring by this guy, JT Southern, with an awesome hair metal mullet, and he would play guitar to the ring for Flamingo. Where's he on the big pay-per-view? Ventura on commentary says Flamingo looks exotic. That's a description. Match starts off almost like a fight with slaps and tackles. Bagwell with a big right hand that Ross almost treats as big as Merrow's left or Hayes' right. Just saying, when the first 3 matches have a guy with a big punch as their signature move, it kind of takes the oomph out of those punches every time it happens. Flamingo on top, more punches, wears him down with a chin lock, some shoulder tackles, hitting the ropes. They both go tumbling over the top rope. The referee lets it go. Back in the ring, Bagwell fires back up, hits Scotty with a big elbow out of the corner, the axe handle, his fisherman suplex at the bridge, but Flamingo gets a rope break. Bagwell with an O'Connor roll, Flamingo counters it and grabs the tights to steal the win. I give it 1.5 stars out of 5. This match felt kind of flat to me, very one-dimensional, very punch-heavy. I was kind of surprised by that. I think that, for 2 guys who represent the future of the business or the company at that point, I wasn't really seeing it from these guys. But then again, Flamingo does become light heavyweight champion in a month, so what do I know? JR and Ventura at ringside to talk about JYD and Ron Simmons versus Mr. Hughes and Cactus Jack, which is interesting because these were advertised as 2 separate singles matches on the pre-show. They show the replay from Super Brawl when Ron Simmons is double teamed by Jack and Abdul the Butcher. JYD enters the ring from the crowd wearing a big white tux, helping his friend. This feels like it would lead to a tag team match against Jack and Abdullah, but the Butcher leaves the company soon after Super Brawl, and so Jack has to hire another large black guy as his heavy. It's Mr. Hughes. What do they have to do with each other? Nobody knows. It's never really explained. And like I said, they were advertising a pair of singles matches, Simmons versus Hughes and Jack versus JYD, but instead we get this allegedly advertised tag team match of the 2 teams. Or do we? As Jack makes his entrance, he goes into hiding, and then when Simmons and JYD make their entrance, Cactus jumps Junkyard Dog from behind. I love Gary Capetta's little "oh" when he sees it.
278 pounds. Oh my! Oh.
Cactus with the signature elbow onto JYD off the ramp onto the concrete. He gets right up and takes a backdrop on the ramp from Simmons as Ron goes to check on his partner. Dog is laid out and taken to the back. The baddies are in the ring and they want Simmons. Ron ultimately comes running back in and wants to fight, takes him down with a double clothesline. After several minutes of fighting, we learn this is not a handicap match, but in fact a singles match between Simmons and Mr. Hughes, which was previously advertised. Hughes and Simmons square off. The 2 exchange some big strikes, but Hughes gets the advantage. Sunglasses is staying on all the while. Simmons takes a beating, but then the speed on that hip toss. My God, Hughes almost flies out of the ring. Mr. goes for a big sit on the ropes, but Simmons dodges it, hits the spine buster, tackles Cactus Jack, hits the chop block on Hughes to win, hits Cactus again. I also give this match 1.5 stars out of 5. I think Hughes did okay. I think as far as a big man, he worked well enough. I think Simmons sold well enough for him as well. And Simmons in this way looking very strong here, fighting essentially 2-on-1, but also overpowering the big man, Mr. Hughes. I think Jack on the outside making his little screeches and whatnot felt menacing, kind of added to it as well. But yeah, as far as the match goes, it was, it was there. On we go now to what is, in my opinion, aesthetically the most 90s thing you'll see all night tonight. You've got Todd champion in his first singles match on pay-per-view, hailing from WCW Special Forces, against the Super Invader from Bangkok, Thailand, even though his bandana has the rising sun flag on it. And here's something I learned in the course of researching for this video. The man under the big red sock is Hercules Hernandez, formerly of the World Wrestling Federation, formerly with Power and Glory. I was shocked as hell to realize this is Hercules because the physique looked a lot different. I know that he's wearing a different outfit, but it looks like his physique is different here than what I remember seeing from the WWF. Also, some of the moves he does here are things I never saw him do in the Federation. I didn't realize he was some karate. Speaking of which, hi-ya, 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 Super Invader with all the chops. Long chin lock on champion by Soups here. The fans sound bored with what's going on. Invader dumps Todd out of the ring, slams him on the floor, and loses his bandana in the process. Soups goes up top, goes for a big flying nothing, but champion gets the foot up. Soups looks even more ridiculous now than he did at the start of the show, which is hard to do. He's flopping around until he drops champion on the ropes, hits a weird looking powerbomb, and this bootleg Hellboy looking guy, Super Invader, wins. I don't know what to say about this match. 0 stars. It was shit. Moving on. Well, the York Foundation may have been disbanded earlier in the year, but Richard Morton keeps his fancy name as he goes against Big Josh. It's another match on the show that was never given any promotion or build, kind of thrown together last minute, which I guess explains why there's no dancing bears for Big Josh this time around. Also, something that made me laugh was that he's billed as Big Josh at 275 pounds. In what world is Matt born 275? Fast-paced action to start things off with Josh, hits the log roll on Morton. Morton gets back up, hits the knee lift, and is on the attack. He rips Josh's flannel vest up, continues the assault, hits a big inverted atomic drop. Nice sequence where both guys try to outmaneuver and pin one another. Josh takes over, hits a big spinning elbow drop. A couple minutes later, hits a big-ass suplex to Morton, just snaps him overhead. Catches Richard midair to hit the inverted atomic drop, takes him down, hits the Northern Exposure, or be later known as the Whoopee Cushion, to win. But there's a bit of confusion about that 3 count.
And the power of Big Josh. Too much for Morton in this contest.
Wasted him. Yeah, you did get him.
I give this one 2.5 stars out of 5, even though this match had no story behind it and it was just kind of thrown together. At least it was a better match than the previous 2 we'd seen. Best friends and former tag team partners square off for gold as Flyin Brian defends the light heavyweight title against the Z-Man Tom Zank. Like I mentioned, Brian and Tom are good friends and everything. They won the US tag titles together as a team, but they've since split off. And as we saw in the episode of Saturday Night Before Wrestlewar, these two are getting a little chippy, things getting a little heated on the night before the big show. I love Jesse on commentary in this match because he goes right to the old trick he does whenever he does commentary for a face versus face matchup where he goes, "Who's gonna cheat first, Ross?" Some back and forth early on. The two know each other's offense very well here. Both guys hit the ropes with the do-si-do spot. Ooh, that's a rare one. I love it. Z-Man with the hammerlock. Brian fights out, hits the head scissors. Then he gets an advantage. Jesse is incredulous to find out that Brian played nose tackle in college football. Just goes nose tackle over and over again. Lots of near falls. Pillman works the leg, but then he hurts his back. Now Z-Man's the aggressor. Zank goes for the Vader bomb, but Pillman puts up the knees. More leg attacks. Z-Man tries to go for a knee in the corner, but he misses. Brian with a figure 4. The two slapping each other in the face. I love it. Z-Man counters the hold, but Pillman rolls it back and they get in the ropes. Pillman goes for a launch over the ropes. Z-Man catches him and power slams him for a 2 count. A crucifix slam gets a kick out. Jesse on the edge of his seat. He's dying to know who's gonna cheat. Come on, guys. Big cross body off the top by Zank. A pair of leapfrogs. They collide in midair. Z-Man with a flapjack, and Pillman takes all that on his face. Another close 2 count. Z-Man's leg appears to have given out on him, but he was playing possum. A big-ass kick to the face in midair. The cover, but Pillman's in the ropes. Zank goes for a missile dropkick, but Pillman dodges it, folds him up to pin and retain. I give this one 4 stars out of 5, and if it weren't for War Games being on the same show, I would give this match the Match of the Night distinction because it's a very enjoyable contest. I think as far as light heavyweight action in 92 in America is concerned, you're not going to find many better matches than what you see with Pillman and Zank. I think the babyface versus babyface back and forth was very well done, despite Jesse's predictions to the contrary. And it's just too bad that you're not going to see too many more matches like this in WCW since Bill Watts' new policies render top rope moves illegal. Interpromotional action up next as the Steiner brothers, the WCW Tag Team Champions, take on New Japan's Tatsumi Fujinami and Takayuki Iizuka. If you talked to somebody in 92 and told them that one of these 4 guys would go on to become a WWE Hall of Famer, they'd never be able to guess which one it was. Like I mentioned, Scott and Rick currently the tag champions, but this match is actually for the #1 contendership for the IWGP tag titles. Jesse boils down this match as a war between American and Japanese car makers. Sure, Jess, that's what this match is about. Early on, Scott picks up Fujinami and tries to do a moonsault slam, but spikes himself pretty bad, does it again to Iizuka and does it marginally better. Why do you think that was a good move to do more than once? Iizuka with some good looks, it's a top rope senton on Scott. JR describes that as a moonsault-like maneuver. That's literally the opposite of that, Jim. Scott powers out of a Boston Crab, gets into the bridge, hits the double underhook powerbomb. Rick with a big fucking elbow off of Scott's shoulders and a 2 count. Rick and Fujinami in here now. Rick just dumps the poor guy on his head with a German suplex. Good lord. Fujinami gets Rick on his shoulders. Iizuka dives at the top with a crossbody attempt, but Rick catches him with a suplex. Holy shit. Looks like Iizuka and Fujinami are both sporting some pretty big injuries as the match goes on. The Steiners are not playing nice with these two. Tatsumi's bleeding from the mouth. Iizuka is also bleeding from the mouth and nose, his eyes swelling up. Fujinami attacks Rick's leg, but then Iizuka is back in the ring and gets beaten up by the Steiners. He makes a blind tag. Fujinami decks Rick on the apron. We get a slugfest. Referee is distracted as Scott gets double teamed. We're getting all kinds of illegal contact in this matchup, folks. A big clothesline by Rick off the top rope. Scott goes for a suplex off the top, but Fujinami suplexes him instead. Scott takes a spike pile driver. At this point, these guys are just trying to kill each other, it seems. Rick suplexes Iizuka once on the mat, then again off the top to win the match. You know what? This match was not pretty, but it was a lot of fun to watch. I give this one 4 stars out of 5. It kicked all kinds of ass, in my opinion. It's the exact opposite in every way from the match we just saw with Pillman and Zank, but it was also very entertaining. It was pretty aggressive for like what WCW's standard of performance was like at the time, but you know what? It made the Steiners one of the best. Will someone get William Regal because it's time for someone to yell War Games! It's time for War Games, folks, as Sting's Squadron, that's Sting, Barry Windham, Dustin Rhodes, Nikita Koloff, and Ricky Steamboat, take on the Dangerous Alliance. And check out all these cool nicknames. Ravishing Rick Rude, Stunning Steve Austin, The Enforcer Arn Anderson, The Cruncher Larry Zbyszko, and the recently departed beautiful Bobby Eaton. A lot of big storylines here, kind of crisscrossing and culminating in this big blow-off match here. Of course, the Dangerous Alliance, headed up by Paulie Dangerously, is considered to be one of the greatest stables in wrestling history, even though they only really dominated in WCW for maybe half a year, if that. But I mean, it's an all-star cast of some of the greatest wrestlers to ever lace up a pair of boots, either in their era or before or since. It's really impressive. Of course, Ravishing Rick Rude is the crown jewel of the group as the US champion. There is some tension in the group though, as Larry Zbyszko is seen as somewhat of a weak link at the moment. Sting, the world champion, back from a rib injury he suffered at a house show against Vader weeks before. The main feud going into War Games though right now is Steamboat versus Rude, because Steamboat wants the US championship and Rude has been not only broken Steamboat's nose weeks ago, but has also accused him, he and Medusa, have accused Steamboat of stalking Medusa and wanting some kind of improper relationship with her, which of course everyone says is ridiculous because Steamboat is this professed, very public family man. My favorite part of the build for this particular feud going into War Games actually takes place on an episode of Saturday Night where Rude is being interviewed on stage by Jim Ross, and they take questions from the audience, and there's a few women who pop up and go, "Excuse me, I'm having an affair with Ricky Steamboat." No, I'm having an affair with Ricky Steamboat. Just hilarious stuff. Also, where do Nikita Koloff's loyalties lie? Because he left the company in August of 91 in the middle of a feud with Sting. Then he comes back several months later in 92 to save Sting from an attack. And so the question about his allegiances and where he lies in the spectrum of is he a face or is he a heel, still very much up in the air going into this match. Barry Windham has just beaten Steve Austin in a 2 out of 3 falls match the previous week to win the TV title. Rhodes has been fighting the Alliance in some form or fashion since the previous year. So needless to say, this match feels like a blow-off. I will never get tired of Cage Pyro. We need more Cage Pyro, people. Stunning Steve and Barry Windham start things off, and they're coming out swinging. Paulie Dangerously and the rest of the Alliance go over their plans as Austin and Windham continue on. Austin tries and fails to swing off the ceiling of the cage, but Windham just catches him and drops him. Austin's the first to bleed when Windham throws him into the cage wall. The first 5 minutes are up, and now the Dangerous Alliance win the coin toss. Wow, the heels have the advantage in War Games. What a shock. And Rick Rude is on the attack. It becomes 2-on-1. 2 minutes passed, and Ricky Steamboat like a house of fire on Austin and Rude. Steamboat with a pair of DDTs, making that at least the second and third on the match alone. Steamboat hangs off the ceiling to attack Austin in the Ravishing One. Now the Squadron's on top. Arn Anderson in next to the Alliance, a DDT of his own. A beautiful spine buster to Steamboat. The Alliance with more beating down, a big pile driver from Rude to Ricky. Ricky's thrown from one ring to the other. Dustin Rhodes enters next for the good guys, and what a run he goes on. He hits Austin on both ends with an inverted atomic drop, then an amazing clothesline. What the hell is Windham doing to Anderson there? Let's see, he's using him as a jackhammer on the aprons. In next, the Cruncher. Medusa climbs the cage and drops Paulie's cell phone into it, which is used as a weapon. Then Sting gets up there with her and scares her off. Rude is pulverizing Steamboat's broken nose as time expires, and Sting enters fourth for his team. He presses Rude into the cage ceiling repeatedly. Pretty much everyone save for Sting and Steamboat are bleeding at this point. Now Rude's getting wishbone between the two rings. Beautiful Bobby is the last man to enter for the Dangerous Alliance. The baddies loosen one of the turnbuckles. There's blood everywhere. It's chaos. Finally in comes Nikita Koloff, and it's the match beyond. Submit or surrender. Koloff goes for Arn first, stares down Sting, takes the bullet for him. They fight the baddies off and embrace. Yay, he's a good guy. Dustin goes up top and can barely fit up there. Goes for an elbow and misses. Zbyszko grabs the steel bolt from the corner, looks to hit Sting with it, but he hits Eaton in the arm by mistake. Sting gets Bobby in the armbar. Eaton submits, and Sting's Squadron wins. Dangerously and everyone else is mad at Zbyszko for screwing up as the show goes off the air. I give this one 5 stars out of 5. What an incredible main event. What a War Games match this was. There was a lot of brawling, a lot of violence, some fun moments, a good story, a whole lot of blood, and my favorite thing about the match, it just breezed on by. It went under a half hour long, didn't overstay its welcome. This is a really fun War Games match to watch. I recommend it. Though this match was the blow-off, this will not be the end of the Dangerous Alliance, but it would be pretty much the beginning of the end, because Zbyszko would be forced out of the group soon after this. Other members would branch off and do their own thing, and by November, once Paulie Dangerously left the company, the Dangerous Alliance was disbanded entirely. Hear more about what happened between Rude and Steamboat, albeit with a little less context, in my review of Beach Blast 92. My grade for WCW Wrestlewar 92 is a B+. It's a really strong show overall. I think there's a couple of mid-card matches on this show you could really do without and really kind of drag down the grade of the show overall. But it starts off really strong with the US Tag title match, and I think the last hour of the show is really strong. The light heavyweight title match, the Steiners versus Fujinami and Iizuka, and then of course War Games, which, believe the hype folks, if it's not the greatest War Games match in history, it's definitely up there, top 2 or 3 easily. But let me know what you thought about that in the comments section. Well, next time on the Classic Review segment, in 2 weeks, we are going back to the Invasion storyline from 2001. A national tragedy has hit the United States, and it puts a real weird vibe across everything we see on this show as the Alliance and Team WWF continue to fight on in Unforgiven 2001. I'm Brian Zane, and I'll see you next time.
I'm begging you, sir. I am begging you to say it.